You know Kevin Bacon. He's the Hollywood star everybody's associated with in 6 Degree or less. You've heard a few stories such a long ways about superstars taking their film profit and making enormous business bets. Kevin Bacon and his significant Kara Sedgwick didn't do that. They put their cash in a decent, exhausting mutual funds run by Bernie. Matt, on the off chance that name doesn't sound familiar, this is the way you recollect it. Bernie Madoff got individuals to put resources into his mutual funds. Then he grabbed the cash. Bacon and Sedgwick weren't the only ones tricked. Moff's Ponzi conspire took north of 10 billion. Madoff was captured in 2008 and kicked the bucket in jail, yet tragically they actually left his casualties much more than 6 Degree away from their cash. Yet, how to get to our next CB? How about we check whether Kevin Bacon was in Dark Mass with Dakota Johnson, who was in Insane in Alabama with number 8. Meatloaf went onto the music scene out of nowhere with his extraordinary stone drama style. His most memorable collection offered 30 to 4 million duplicates. Under the pressure of visiting, Moff fostered a terrible cocaine propensity. He said it resembled some horrendous revival where all that I'd at any point want transformed into a bad dream, and it was quickly transforming me into a neurotic. What's more, his following couple of collections didn't sell too. He began clashing with his record name and with his musician, Jim Steinman, who needed more credit. This prompted Steinman's ex-director suing Meatloaf over and over. Meatloaf said, "I had 45 claims adding up to $80 million tossed at me. It was a game." However, he said CBS wasn't paying him any eminences, yet he was just bringing in cash by visiting in 1983 to escape the claims. Meatloaf defaulted on some loan, which cost him his home and the freedoms to the vast majority of his music. However, he figured out how to return the 90s with another head collection and an acting profession, number 7. Kim Basinger, 199.3 was the year Meatloaf made something happen with Terrible Out of Misery 2. And that very year things went downhill for Kim Basinger, in view of her turn from effective model to celebrity during the 1980s. She utilized her millions to go in with her family on an experience that was essentially fascinating. She purchased the whole town of Braselton, Georgia, for $20 million with the arrangement to transform it into a film-focused traveler objective. However, in 1993, she committed 2% of Hollywood's unpardonable sins. To begin with, she turned 40, yet her greater wrongdoing was retreating from a film. She endorsed on to star in Boxing Helena, a film seized about a lady. And, all things considered, it's gross. Madonna had proactively consented to star in the film and afterward quit confronting her. She got less and less alright with the film as creation went on. She attempted to get the content changed, and ultimately she strolled off as well. The studio sued her for barely short of $9 million. This is around the very time that the Purchasing a Town plan began to go to pieces, making her petition for financial protection and need to auction the land she'd purchased. That was unpleasant, yet how much cash our next superstar lost destroys it. Penny became one of the most extravagant rappers ever. He went onto the scene in the mid-2000s and hit it huge with his most memorable collection, yet where he truly brought in his cash was good to go. He established his own record in the middle of between various business authorizing and support bargains. He stacked up $500,000 in 2010. 50 Penny needed every one of the decent things that cash could get him, and not simply to flaunt in his recordings. He purchased a 21-room manor from a killjoy on his Lux CB, who's number 4 on our rundown. He filled it with an extravagant vehicle assortment, a disco, and a cinema. While the real estate market slumped in 2007, 50% Penny couldn't escape the costly house. Not all his business worked out, all things considered. He lost cash on a bombed clothing line and a boxing advancement, to name a couple. Then, at that point, came the claims. Penny got beat for $2 million for not holding up his part of an earphone permitting bargain and $5 million for purchasing and delivering a sex tape of his opponent Rick Ross's better half in 2015. In 2015, 50 Penny needed to bow out of all financial obligations, and he lost the freedoms to the vast majority of his music to settle his obligations. However, he believed that individuals should realize he didn't lose all his cash. He's been taking care of it from that point forward, and he's stirred his direction back up to being a multi-mogul. Yet Penny didn't begin the broke rapper game. He was simply following the format spread out by our next superstar, number 5. MC Sledge. 30 years before 50 Pennies, MC Mallet was the first pioneer when it came to rappers consuming crazy measures of cash. MC Sledge's hit You Can't Contact made him universal and made him truly rich, and he spent nearly $30 million on a house loaded up with all the extravagance the 9 seconds brought to the table. From marble sculptures of himself to a gold hot tub and 2 pools. He had 2 helicopters, 1 for each pool, and 17 extravagance vehicles. At the point when MC Sledge headed off to someplace, he took a 200-man experience that cost him a portion of $1 million per month. By 1996, that cash was going out much quicker than it was coming in. and those parachute pants never really eased back his fault. That is when Mallet opted for non-payment. He owed cash to many individuals, banks, and rental organizations, as well as even his duties and utilities. MC Mallet was an image of a former time of something over the top. Our next CB is associated with a couple of different stories we've previously covered. Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was a startling fighter thriving in 1986. He turned into the most youthful warrior ever to bring home a heavyweight championship. He tore through the opposition and acquired nearly $400 million making it happen. He even became the last supervisor in an exemplary Nintendo arcade game. While he was bringing in cash like insane, he was spending it comparably quick. Tyson purchased a 21-room chateau that we've proactively caught wind of, in light of the fact that, when he needed to sell it, 50 Celsiuses was the person who got it. Tyson spent as sumptuously as anybody on this rundown. He dropped 6 figures on a gold chain. You could have even heard that Mike Tyson claimed a tiger, yet entirely that is false. He claimed 3 tigers. He surrendered them to a safe haven after one of them destroyed a lady who sneaked onto his property to play with them. While Mike Tyson could procure $30 million a battle, he could have stayed aware of the spending, yet his terrible conduct made that difficult. Tyson was known as the baddest man on earth, and he could likewise be a really dreadful person in 1992. Tyson was sentenced for assault, and he burned through 3 years in jail. Do you recollect that survey in 1993 that said Dorothy Hamill was tied for the most famous competitor in America? Indeed, a similar survey observed that Mike Tyson was America's most disliked competitor. At the point when Tyson emerged from jail, he sent off a boxing rebound. He battled the previous Vander Holyfield winners, however lost. Tyson said he lost because on the grounds that Holyfield continued to headbutt him, and the ref wasn't making a difference with it. So he did what any sensible individual would do in the rematch. Tyson let out his mouth watchman and gnawed off a piece of Holyfield's ear. That was basically the finish of individuals viewing Tyson in a serious way as a fighter. He got his boxing permit suspended for a year, and disliked he had a ton of other attractive abilities in 2003. Mike Tyson was $23 million underwater, and he at last needed to go into Chapter 11. Yet he figured out how to recuperate a piece since winding up in a seemingly impossible situation, dissimilar to our next CB number 3. Michael Jackson. They called him the ruler of pop, and it was not really an embellishment. From his experience as a kid star to one of the greatest record craftsmen of the 20th 100 years, he procured an expected $4 billion. However, when he passed on, he was somewhere down bleeding cash. Where did the cash go? A great deal of it went to his Neverland farm home. He deceived out his home with a cinema, 2 working train lines, and an administration that overshadowed Mike Tyson's with tiger, elephants, and a monkey named Air Pockets. He was burning through $30 million every year to keep everything up, and Jackson's frightening way of behaving didn't help his funds. In 1993, Michael Jackson paid $13 million to settle a claim blaming him for kid attack. What everything amounted to was that when he kicked the bucket in 2009, Michael Jackson's home was $500 million underwater. Please accept my apologies about the turn that took toward the end. On the off chance that you had close to zero insight into Michael Jackson's standing, we will see some more scummy way of behaving before we get to the furthest limit of this rundown.